I wish that I free.
All right, welcome back to At the Round Table with Memley. I'm your host, Larry Ellison, and in the studio, my brother from another, Dr. Brent.
I'm here.
The doctor's here.
I can't hear myself, brother. Am I all right?
Give you a check. Do you have your headphones on?
Yeah, I have them on this time, man.
I couldn't resist.
Hey, listen, man. You know, you get over 60. You know what I mean?
Well, I thought that. Like, where are my glasses? And then
and my wife says to me, "Well, they're around here somewhere."
Just get ahead of yourself. Get ahead of yourself.
Yeah, it is what it is. You get to a certain age. What can I say?
Hey, listen.
I'm saying to myself, why am I not hearing this in my ear?
Yeah.
Probably because the earphones.
Probably because they're on the table. And you're wondering where's that faint voice coming from down there, right? All right. Good morning, Pastor Hobbs. How are you, sir?
By the grace of God, I'm well.
All right, good thing, man. You must not have anywhere to go today, man.
No.
He's shopping and cleaning the Board of Health.
Yeah. Usually he is cleaning the Board of Health.
Shopping,
but it's gonna rain today. He didn't want to get shoes messed up. You know what I mean?
That's it. There you go.
You got to protect those. You know?
Listen,
those snakes. You know.
I told him I will run him in a dark alley, man. I'll be aiming at his feet. All right, we want to thank our sponsor, Guaranteed Rate Mortgage Company. For all your mortgage needs, give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 781-342-0252. Guaranteed Mortgage is located at 75 State Street in downtown Boston, Mass. Guaranteed Mortgage Company, guaranteed to exceed your expectations. And folks, like I said, in partnership with Guaranteed Mortgage Rate, next Saturday, April 2nd, 2022, is going to be a home buyer education class at 61 Columbia Road. That's the Manleo headquarters of Dorchester, Mass. from 2 to 5 p.m. It's free. All you need to go to hec.eventbrite.com if you want to register. That's hec.eventbrite.com just to register, because we just need a number, because they will be providing refreshments there. If you were listening to the broadcast last week, we had just a phenomenal group guests that were informational, and those folks are going to be there. Cora Holbrook, who's the branch manager, is going to be in attendance, as well as Samuel Reimer he's the one that's really performing the classes. Angelo Nubi, vice president of marketing of mortgage lending. So there's going to be a wealth of information there, folks. I mean, the mortgage rates are changing, the signs are changing. Even if you are not in the market, you may be at some point. Now's the time to get yourself educated on it. So again, home buy education class next Saturday, April 2nd, 2022 at 61 Columbia Road. That's Manleo headquarters at Columbia Road and Seaver Street. And if you want to register, go to hec.eventbrite.com and you can register there free of charge. There will be lunch provided, so just want to get a head count there on that. I will be in attendance, helping out there. And also want to learn something myself, and with that in mind, we were talking, Dr. Bradley. There's we're seeing growth and prosperity in this country, but we're not seeing it in our neighborhoods. We're not seeing it across the board. We're not seeing it equally distributed. And so they said there is a story in today's Boston Globe. And it reads as follows: the world of big-time development in Boston is overwhelmingly white. There's a growing push to change that. After the Massport model was spurred inclusion of investors, a team of investors from Roxbury through Chinatown and over in the Seaport, a push to diversify Boston development industry is starting to reach critical mass. A new wave of companies and investors is launching projects and winning lucrative contracts to design and build and manage them. It's a striking shift in just a few years for a sector in this city that has long been overwhelmingly white. But there's a big catch, a glaring omission. For the most part, these projects all sit on publicly owned land where Massport or some other state or city agency can set the criteria to choose who develops them and prioritize diversity. The vast majority of real estate projects, however, hinge on transactions between two private owners, and there's no way for government to mandate who builds them. For the doors of the clubby development world to swing wide open, there needs to be another option. Now here comes an approach that might provide one. A new iteration of what has become known as the Massport model. This one is dubbed the Commonwealth Development Model. Was submitted last month to the Boston Planning and Development Agency, the BPDA. It would make diversity and inclusion a factor in all large project approvals, much like traffic and environmental impacts are now. So it goes on. Developers would have to submit a plan to the city for how they would address the issue. This could meet an inclusion criteria by having people of color as equity investors, for example, or as professional services providers on the project team. Another alternative shows that a percentage of space would be set aside for community uses or local retailers, or maybe the developers could establish internships and mentorships or prove that they could create a path of success for kids. So it goes on. So the crux of it is that, you probably have been down there because I know you're a wealthy man, Dr. Bradley. He's just clearing his throat to acknowledge a yes. Is that I hadn't been to the seaport. I was down there a couple of years ago now. It was, and the only reason I went through there was because I had to go to the police harbor patrol for something. I was just amazed at the development that has taken place down there. I mean, the growth that used to kind of be like there was only, I think it was Anthony's Pier 4 was only, and then there was the harbor, the entertainment was harbor lights where they had the performance during the summer.
Yeah, the camp there, the tent.
Right, exactly. So you know what I'm speaking. But other than that, it was like a blighted area. I mean, for years it had been neglected. Now we have cruise ships that come in there. We have all these fine dining restaurants, hotels, new condominium complexes. But we haven't prospered from that. Matter of fact, the Toys for Tots used to be in one of the buildings down there. It was really run down. I remember going down and getting toys for Mamleo and for other when I was in the city. They have been booted out of there. They've had that space for years, but it's too valuable now to be donated. So now they no longer. Last year was the last year. They're no longer there. I say that because we're seeing a growth. We're even seeing it in the communities of color, but we're not seeing any prosperity. Because when you talked about that generational wealth, it's only so much you can leaving your home is going to do for your kids.
I used to patrol that area when I was a young cop back in the 20th century. I patrolled Northern Avenue. That was my sector.
Wow,
It was
I didn't even know we
1.
patrolled that.
Yeah, we did. We had
Okay.
concurrent jurisdiction with the state police. And when the Anthony Pier 4, right before they built the courthouse there.
Is that other place down there? No Names? Is they still there?
No Name is no longer there.
Wow.
So I used to eat my lunch over there. So I had the service unit patrol there. It was a Charlie 411 back in District 1. I know it's District 6. I went down there to my daughter's 40th birthday. Davio's, I think. My son-in-law had the thing. Got completely lost. Had no idea. And my wife looked at me like, "You used to patrol us." I knew it inside out because you come there every night. I did it for 5 years. I had no idea where I was. I couldn't tell you now, even to this day, how to navigate that area. It goes to show you. In fact, it looked like a whole different section, a new city.
That's what I'm saying.
Like you ask yourself, am I in Boston or am I, someplace down in Miami
Las
or something?
Vegas, right?
Vegas,
high end, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then, but when you go down, you stop and you think like, okay, how many people of color own, operate, or even participated in constructing these buildings? And I can tell you, it's probably zero.
Well, I think that there was a story, if I'm not mistaken, and I may be correct, that the only business down there was a black owned was a barbershop, shoe shine shop in that area. That was pretty much it. And it was very tiny, but that was it.
So my point here is that how much of that growth, how much of that wealth has been put in our community. So that's one piece. This is what I keep going back to. We have to deal with the system. We can say anything about whomever is in the system. The system will attack them if they are trying to do something for the people of color. The system will attack them, regardless if they're black or white. So we have to deal with the system because the system alienates us. The system prevents us from being a part of the benefits of society.
Right, but as I was saying before we went to break, Dr. Bradley, the original cost for the big dig was supposed to be $2.2 billion. We know it's always going to be more. It ballooned out of control. It was $24 billion, close to that, by the time it was finished. Not one that did not, all that money that came into just that project did not change the economic situation of black people and black and brown people in Boston. I don't have a lot of hope. I see the mayor has been proposing some things, but again, that all sounds well and good. But the reality is, Dr. Bradley, if I don't have an infrastructure, how can I compete for a multi-billion-dollar or $1 million contract? So you're setting me up to fail because I haven't been able to come in. Like I remember having conversations, and God rest his soul, with Mario Souza, who founded the Susie Construction Company, and I was doing the detail going back. You've probably done details with them when you wanted to. And I asked him one day, how did you start your business? He said, I started with one truck. He said, but what I did to kind of be deceptive when I started, he said, I didn't put number 1 on that truck. I put number 17 on there, so people thought I had a fleet of trucks. He said, and I went out there and I worked hard and committed. He said, but access, and then I started building up. He said, and it took me time to where you see this fleet and where I am now. But that was one, his family and his friend pulling together, which we don't do enough of. But the opportunities, once he was able to get in there, then he was all over the state.
Yeah, but see, the thing is so that's the hit. So I can pull together a fleet or a truck. All right, I can put 20 on it. All right, I can be skilled in actually constructing sidewalks, but because I have the education, I have the certification, but all that means nothing if I don't have the opportunity. See, if the system doesn't give me the opportunity, because the person who actually signing the contract saying I'm going to appoint you as opposed to you doesn't usually look like me. And so therefore, if I don't have the opportunity, then I don't get an opportunity to show what I do know, and so all that investment goes for naught.
All right, 617.
That's the problem.
617-282-0685. 617-282-0685. You listen at the Roundtable with Emilio. What do you say? Is Boston sharing the wealth here? I don't believe so. And it sounds like Dr. Bradley does not at all.
It never has.
But your point is well taken, because while you were saying, I was just laughing because I remember having a conversation with John Cruz, who is now the president and CEO of Cruz Construction. His father formed it, and he is very adamant about being pro-black in the business. But he is someone who has said publicly that as large as his company is, and it's huge, and it's glad you go around, you see Cruz, but you don't see them outside of this area here, outside of the black area. And you're saying exactly what you were saying, because when you said that, I was like, wow, right. He has not had the access. Right? He has the infrastructure, but he has not had the access. So if he can't get it, why am I going to believe that? See,
the problem here, and I keep telling we have to really go back to the legacy, because the problem is in America, you have a distribution of unequal distribution of resources. We have 80% of the resources are owned by 10% of the people, and not, you know what I mean, and 90% of them are white, right? So if you have the money, you make the decisions who's going to actually get the employment. Right. And so that's the problem.
And let me take it a step further, because like I said, I feed off of what you're saying, because in John Cruz, he's been a successful businessman. His father started a company. We see the growth. I don't know of any bankruptcies they've ever filed in their company. Donald Trump, right? Inherited the family business, has pretty much run it into the ground. It's just a name, but has been in bankruptcy numerous times. Everything he's touched is really, even the presidency has gone to pot, right? But yet, to your point, he keeps getting. So how is he able to get the capital? Exactly,
he's getting access,
right? So.
Because of his skin tone,
right?
Because of that's why I go back to the point. If we don't deal with the system, all we're doing is dressing up a pig.
But the system is regressing, Dr. Bradley. We're seeing a shift back to. I think it's going to be even more difficult for people like us to have opportunities, because they're changing.
The system is regressing because there's only because it's regressing because we have a certain amount of people of color. America is becoming more and more people of color. It becoming predominantly people of color, and so throughout history, when you're reading, you're thinking about history in America,
Yeah.
there was only a certain amount of percentages, or only a certain percentage that white America would be comfortable with when it comes down to people. Usually it's around about 6 to 5%. When you start getting to the 15% level, where we're like 13.4, 13.8% of the population,
Okay.
so we're at that critical level. Now, because when America starts to shift where people of color become outnumbering people that are not of color, that is, that's critical. And so you
Critical
start
mass.
That's when you start getting behaviors that's overt, racist behavior that overt is out in your face.
Yeah.
And that's what we're
Wow.
seeing today.
Yeah.
All right. So what we have to understand here is that we can't deal with the problem until we deal with the problem.
What
Period.
you and Jamal said, in dealing with ourselves, right?
It starts with us.
Right.
I was having a conversation with one of my daughters, and we got into colorism. It's a good example of how America has taught us to hate us, and we do it so well
Yeah.
that it makes us comfortable with
Right.
being
Right.
considered, being racist,
Right.
being victimized by racism.
Right. Well, it
You know
goes
what I
back
mean?
to darker skin, light skin, right? And
It's
during my time as president, you were former
Yeah.
president of Mammillville. Culturally,
Yeah.
right? We were fighting each other,
Yeah.
and none of us were benefiting
Yeah.
from it. But we all thought that because they would tell you if I have to give it to this segment, I can't give it to you,
But-
knowing that none of us were getting it.
But if I get you to fight yourself, then you don't have time to focus on me.
Right.
And
The real problem.
The real problem. You see what I'm saying? So we have to think about, I like the ideas that we can come together and come up with creative ways to make sure that some of our people
Right.
are doing the right thing. And we talk about turning the dollar over in our community. But the real issue is that our community has been marginalized, disenfranchised,
Right.
you know what I mean, and completely neglected. Not only by the system, but by us.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So you have your PhD
That's the
in
real deal.
public policy, right, Dr. Bradley?
Yeah.
And Jamal, and I think you even alluded to the fact that, when you guys were talking, I was thinking about, you're right, Martin Luther King, President Obama, the current nominee for the Supreme Court, Justice Jackson, and the list is long. That I didn't even know these folks were over the bridge, had attended these institutions at Harvard, right? Had gone there, but there was nothing that enticed people of that. They come here, they get it, and they leave.
They leave.
Even some of us who were born here, we get it. We find that Boston is not as welcoming, in the state is not as welcoming, because Boston, if you can't get it here, you're sure not getting it out in the suburbs of Boston. How do we change that dynamic?
Or
can we?
I think
a bigger
Jamal. I
question.
think it may be a little bit too late for someone like myself. Rapidly approaching 70.
But is that why all of us leave and just give up?
No, I think it starts with we're doing the best that we can, like what you're doing, like what I did, and like what Pastor Hobbs and Pastor Wall. We're men, we're family men.
Right.
We're men that are actually training our offspring, our future, our legacy. This is how you work. I often talk to my nephews, who are my nephews from my older sisters, grew up to be positive, loving fathers, and when I talk to them, they tell me, well, you're the reason why. But watch this now. Watch this. But those young men are now working and keeping their families together and actually working with their offsprings about this is how you actually keep family wealth. See, it starts within the family unit itself.
Right.
That's the basic that's the basic level of society, is that family unit. And so what we have to do as a people, when we're sitting down talking about initiatives that we have put together to get these young men off the street, we got to start thinking about how do we actually put an initiative together to keep the family unit together, and help those brothers and sisters who are struggling.
If I'm hearing you correctly, and it's a little scary for us because we're not too far apart, is that we may not see it.
We may not.
The seeds that we planted, we may not see. We may not harvest them, right? But they're growing. So that gives me confidence. It's just that,
brother, listen. Listen to this.
I'm good.
Dr. King didn't see the results that he actually put in together.
Right.
You know, Malcolm X didn't see it.
Right.
You know,
Right.
So you have a whole lot of people that came before us.
Right.
My grandfather was not here to see his grandson get a PhD.
Right.
You see what I'm
Oh,
saying?
you just get an education.
Get
Right?
an
'Cause that was
education.
illegal for
It was legal for
even
him to
his
have
children. Right?
So there you go.
Wow.
So
Wow.
you have to think about what is my legacy.
Putting it in context. Yeah.
What is my legacy?
Right.
What can I do today to make sure that the next generation, the generation after that, of actually doing the things
Right.
that's that's going to hold the system accountable, because it's going to take that level of understanding.
Yeah.
You know,
And
it's going
commitment.
to take that level of commitment
Because
to get it
I
done.
think we skipped a generation, Dr. Bradley,
we,
in that
we skipped a few.
I was trying to be generous. But you're right. You're
Yeah.
right. Because when I listen to what you're saying, I was saying, that when I used to talk to Billy Sylvester, the late Billy Sylvester, and folks like that, and hear about the struggles that they were having as black police officers, right? And if you haven't seen that video, that it's on YouTube, Black Cop, you really should pay. You should go. It's about 30 minutes, but it is worth your time. But a lot of what they talked about, I was saying back then, because I was a young officer, man, I'm glad I would not have to go through with. I thought that they had resolved those matters and they were behind us. And Dr. Bradley, it's worse. The things that I dealt with during my presidency, you inherited, and you dealt with, and we still deal with, are worse in some ways. Because back then, people just blatantly told you how they feel, and they wrote it. They had signs that told you couldn't. Now it's done in a different manner, right? And then you have people who are okay with, like I said, we're seeing a shift in this country where that type of behavior is now welcomed again, embraced, and actually it's sought out.
Yeah, it's sought out because again we're approaching that critical mass of representation of black people in society.
Yeah.
Around 15%. That's when it gets critical.
Yeah.
All right, that's when America starts to actually say, "Oh, I'm uncomfortable with their representation. We got to do things like, bring people in from Europe." Or issues like you don't have a problem with the Ukrainians coming in. I can tell you that right now. It won't be a problem with that. All right, because you have to keep that. They comfortable with keeping that level as it relates to quantity. Amount of people that are not of color above people who are.
Right.
So
we've had wars in Africa and stuff like that.
we
but
still
we're not
have them.
right, and we're not as embracing. We've had genocide.
Yeah.
Right. We're not
All
as
over the continent
embracing.
of Africa.
To bring folks
Yeah,
here that
yeah.
look like. No, I mean,
but don't get me wrong.
No.
What's happening in Europe
Absolutely.
is appalling. But the matter is, a life is a life. God, their God is my God. You know what I mean?
right.
You
But
see where I'm going?
I see where you're going, and you're going down the right road. But that's the point: is that somehow when you talk like this, like we are, people think you have something. No, I am glad,
No.
and I welcome. I'll be the first one in line.
Listen, I'm a man of God.
Right.
And as a man of God, I have to see each human being as a temple of God. And so if I believe in God and love him the way that I do, I can't hurt you because I see that temple. I see you as his temple. Unlike the Old Testament, scripture said, you are the temple of God. You know what I mean? And he looks at your heart. The soil of God is your heart. That seed of the word should be in your heart. Not in your mind. You should control your mind gate, your eye gate, and your mouth gate so that you don't contaminate your heart.
Yeah.
All right. So when I see that, you see where I'm going, right, Pastor? So if when I see that, regardless of the color of your skin, I see the temple of God is just your heart.
I'm gonna run out there and get that collection plate and pass it.
But my
I'm
point
in the
here
church
is
here.
that if I see it that way, then I don't have a hated bone,
Right.
a hated thought
But
for
see,
any individual,
that's how
regardless
folks
of the
try
color
to
of the
frame
skin.
it, right?
Yeah.
That somehow
Yeah.
now you're attacking because you're pointing out the obvious,
Yeah.
right? You're pointing out the deficiencies,
Yeah.
right? And so they try to paint you in this box that, oh, you're against white people. I tell people, show me the proof, show me the data. Show me the data that says anything like, because first thing people think, if you're president of an organization such as Mamleo, you have a hatred for somebody else. All you're saying is that this is a check and balance on a system that we know is not fair, that doesn't treat people the same. That's why we're seeing all these reforms that have happened in this country. And the sad part, what we're also seeing is a pushback from folks wanting to take away people's rights. Like I said, stop women. Whatever side of the aisle you come down on abortion, women's rights, as I guess Jamal was doing his biology, we can't have children.
But Larry, listen, you know what? Again, I go right back to my faith. My faith says that I should love and respect God's work.
Yeah.
All right. Now, for me and my house, I am not going to engage in anything that destroy a human child, a human. But I can't dictate my thoughts, my feelings, my impressions, my opinions on someone else's house.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's between them and God.
Right.
You know, so do I subscribe to abortion? No, I don't. But you know, this is the hit. You know, I have no right to tell someone else who have been victimized in whatever way they have been not to do it. That's not my call.
But these are the same people. This is what I'm saying.
I'm
with
just
it.
saying.
No, you're saying correctly, right? Because these are the same people, you know, that are saying that people don't have a right to take their guns from them, right? But you know that they have a right to bear arms. They have a right to this. They have a right to storm the Capitol. But yet, you're telling other people you don't have a right to vote. You don't have a right to this.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate hypocrisy.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, well, no, because this is what I want.
Yeah.
So that makes it okay.
Yeah. So your rights are okay, but my rights are not.
Your rights are supposed to
Yeah.
protect.
If your rights don't agree with my right, if my rights don't agree with your rights,
Right.
then my rights are invalid.
Right.
You know what I mean? Come on. That's not a democracy.
It's not a dictatorship. We see that. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the round table.
It's Jamal. I'm back.
Yeah. All right.
And see, and this is a thing where, you know, see how it is, like, different Christians can view how the way they practice their spirituality differently. So what Dr. Bradley is talking about is different from what some other people who may espouse to be Christians or ministers or pastors or whatever it is, but it's different. He's speaking from a place of compassion.
Right.
There's some folks out there who claim to profess to have the same belief, but they come from a place of judgment. You see? So, same thing with me. Mr. Bliggity Black Man, right? So, but my black is not the same as some other people, their version of what is black and who is on the blacklist and not on the black. So, you know, it's funny because this is what we end up doing. And that's why we need to create. I mean, can you imagine watching a professional sports game if the rules had not been firmly established? If I think that the out of bounds line is here, but you think it's over there,
Right.
I'm shooting from the free throw line, I put it here, you think it's over there. I mean, we have to have some sort of uniform rules of engagement to make this all make sense, or we're going to be like driving each other crazy.
Right. But to that point, Jamal, and Dr. Bradley, I mean, you guys always got me thinking here because what you just said, that basketball, I want to use that basketball analogy because folks always say they want to be strict constitutions. Whenever it suits them, we got to go back and just whatever the founding fathers, who none look like us, had decided. Your point there in basketball, right? The rules changed. They evolved based on how the thing was, right? We didn't have a 3-point shot.
But let me just say this, 'cause I'm over 60. When a person says that they're going strict constitutional, they mean that they don't even want it. They're not even considering you.
That's what I'm talking about.
Because the Constitution didn't consider you.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
That's the point I'm making.
Okay.
And because the connection I'm trying to make here is that just like in the basketball, because Jamal was a very good point, is that it evolved. It didn't stay the same back then. They had a wooden basket that they used to play basketball in.
Peach
It didn't have It didn't have rules. The guy that invented it, right? It was right here. So it changed, but these folks don't want to change. So if you wrote a constitution that didn't include people like us, how do you expect me to say, "Oh yeah, I'll buy that. I'll buy into that"?
But that, just like the Bible, most people who always refer to the Constitution or pound the Bible or pound on the Constitution, most of those people ain't never read it.
Like, yeah, General Trump did. He couldn't even hold it right side up.
Well, it was,
Right, you know, exactly.
It was 2 Corinthians.
You know, it's really crazy. The other thing, too, thank God basketball did change one thing. Thank God they got rid of them little short shorts.
Oh, the hot pants. I know. Right? The hot pants. I know. You go back and look at them like, man, whose idea was that?
Yeah, I hear
know?
you. I hear you.
But the other thing with as well is that we know most of these folks, like what was his name? Strom Thurmond.
Yeah.
The one that was always bigger, and then you find out he had black kids.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And the thing with Trump, you can't tell me that Trump is talking he's pro-life,
Yeah.
that he hasn't paid for quite a few abortions.
Yeah, but that was typical. I mean, Jefferson had black kids.
Right, but it's the hypocrisy. As long as you
Yeah,
you don't
that's the
find
point.
out
That's the
about
point.
my hypocrisy, it's okay.
It's all right. That's,
Well,
that's the point.
what's crazy is racism has never prevented them from trying to sleep with our women. My grandmother used to tell me this, and she was a tap dancer along the Chitlin Circuit from Canada down south,
Right?
and a lot of men would try to take their liberties with her. It didn't work out too well for them. But she would always say, "Well, if they call us a monkey, why do they want to sleep with us?"
Yeah.
You see, so these racist people who were calling us filthy and dirty and all that, but still found a way into the cabin every night.
Yeah. And right.
You see, so
But
that
didn't want
part-
nobody to know they was in there. But the proof was in the pudding when the kid came about. Daddy wasn't that light. So we know who father was.
And so this is a part too. Now we get into historical stuff, but I mean, this is a part of conquest. There was an old Saturday Night Live skit where they were dressed up as like the Romans, and the guy said, rape the fields and salt the women. Because the old thing what Romans used to do is they used to rape the women and salt the fields.
Oh, okay.
So not only would they decimate your female population and pull off a lot of the men and the women into slavery,
Yeah.
but they would also salt the fields of your village or your town so that you would prevent you from growing crops again. That was their economic terrorism or whatnot.
Yeah.
And we still experience those type of things today where, in what happened to us in our coming to America,
Yeah.
there was a certain thing about breaking the women,
Yeah.
breaking the men, and also making sure that they salted the fields so that we would never get economic prosperity.
Right. And that's why they had these public lynchings and public beatings, so it would send a message to the rest of it.
Yeah.
Caller, stand by. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the round table.
Good morning. I just have a question, and my question is this: when, as black people, are going to finally get rid of or have racism eliminated from American society? Yeah.
You will never. I can answer that, and I'll let Jamal and Dr. Bradley, and you probably have the answer. It will never go away. The problem is that we have to address and we have to call it out. That's what we don't do. And now, they're trying to reverse it and say that you're being racist for saying that the racism exists. That's the play now, and people are now they want you to be afraid to call it out. You have to call it out.
I do you one better, because these are the type of discussions that happen in revolutionary circles. Look. Let's say all white people just got fed up with this. Said, forget it. We don't even want America no more. And they all, go back to Africa. If they all went and go back to Europe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all white people were no longer in America, we would still have racism.
Right.
See, that's the thing. Unfortunately, racism is now attached to white people because they may be the greatest practitioners of it. But much like COVID, we have it too now. And we can deny it. We could say, oh, no, we're black, we're immune to it, and all that stuff, but that doesn't pan out in the real world. If all white people left America tomorrow, we would still have racism in America inflicted in the structures, unless we got rid of the entire structure and got rid of the people who still prop it up, who still look like us, we're still going to have the same problems.
That's it. I need not say anything
So,
more because that's
Ditka,
exactly it.
what are you doing personally to when you see it? How do you address it? Because I know you see it.
Well, I don't have a tolerance of racism in general, period, so I want to get that out in the open. But when someone calls me racist, whether it's a white person or a black person who's very ignorant in their history, I just calmly let them know that, look, I'm a human being just like you. I'm no better than you, and you're no better than me. So let's not act like we're a bunch of kids, and let's move on.
But that's easier said than done. And like Boston, if you talk to people who have never been to Boston, I have a lot of family, and believe it or not, that live in Mississippi and places like that, right? And they will tell me Boston is more racist than Mississippi, because of busing and whatever. And what I still, when I go to Mississippi, I don't feel, and I have family there, I don't feel comfortable there, right? And I know Boston has its problems, but I think that when you think about the South, the cradle, because the North was kind of looked at as, more receptive and inviting to people. But Boston, I agree in a lot of ways with them that Boston is not this welcoming city for people of color that they want to paint pictures. You know, you come here and you go downtown. A lot of times, people that visit here, they visit the Freedom Trail and all of that stuff, and I don't even go near there because I know the real history of this city.
Well, you know, I think in the South, you know what side of the fence you're on.
Huh?
You know what side of the track you're on.
Yeah.
It becomes apparently clear the moment you get there. I'm from Augusta, Georgia. I can't go to Georgia no more than 72 hours. I feel like I got to get out of there, because I'm so scarred. Boston, the racism a little bit more surreptitious, a little bit more in your closet. You got to think about what's going
covert.
on. It's it's all of that and then some. So to ask the question that will you get rid of racism? No, it's not, because it's ingrained in the institutions of America.
Yeah.
That's what people got to understand. That's why I'm saying when I say we have to deal with the system.
Right.
It is ingrained, and from the very onset, from the very beginning, when it was determined that you will be stamped with that idea, as a black individual who will be devalued, disenfranchised, and marginalized, you and your ancestors.
Right.
And so until we deal with those institutions, we're never going to get rid of this racism in this nation.
So, but Jamal, because there's also the visual, right? But here's the thing: and Jamal, I know you travel to Georgia a lot because your daughter's there, and I can go to Mississippi, and I can turn on the TV or turn on the radio, and I can hear this kind of conversation in those places where I wouldn't expect it, and I can see people delivering the news other than a sportscaster that looks like us. I can barely do that here in the city, in this state that's supposed to be very liberal. You don't see anyone. You drive down the highway, you look at the billboards of people, the news anchors. It's no one that looks like us. There's Latoya Edwards in that stroke, and if you don't have cable, you can't even watch her. You can't watch her on the regular. So we haven't really progressed here, and why I say that, because that's important. Because like you said, when you saw Billy Sylvester, that said, hey, I can be that person.
Yep.
But if I think the last real anchor we had of color was Liz Walker.
Yeah.
Here in Boston.
Yeah.
In Boston.
Let me
go ahead, Jamal.
No, yeah, I was gonna say. So yeah, you absolutely right. But and these are the different effects of racism, and this is why quantity in that regard does not equal out to equity. Let's say.
No, it
So,
doesn't.
for instance, when I was a teenager and I was out there balling around and traveling, I had a little young lady, one of the loves of my life, and she had moved to Detroit. And so I traveled to Detroit. And this is my first time. I had been through Detroit before, but now I'm going to be there for a week. And I'm really seeing Detroit. And when I got to Detroit from the moment, and this is probably early 90s, when I got to Detroit, unlike Logan, it's like everybody was black.
Right.
Here, you might go to the hospital or something, you see a couple of black doctors. Down there, everybody was black.
A black suburb.
Doctors, the cafeteria workers.
You cannot find a black suburb in Massachusetts.
Okay, so Detroit, everybody was black. Now, including of course the gangsters. So all these type of things, I saw more black people than I ever saw. But as we all know, Detroit super impoverished.
Yeah.
The economics of that, at that time, I think you could buy a house, and you still can. I think I did
$1,000,
$15,000 or something like that.
Ah.
You know what I mean? So these types of things do not equal moving forward. Let's take Atlanta, for example. Atlanta, they call it the Black Mecca. But really, what is it seen as the Black Mecca for? Entertainment, and like kind of flossing. I don't really see it moving forward to the way I would like in business and so on and so forth. So just because it's more black don't mean it's more better, right? So it's still the structural stuff that now our question here is in Boston, how come we're not further along? And we don't have the numbers. Now in Detroit, the question should be, how is it that we're not further along and we're like 90% of the population? How is it in Atlanta, they should be we should be further along. We're I think 85% of the population. Whatever it is. So all I'm saying is I don't think that more numbers, quantity does not necessarily translate to quality.
No, you're right. I mean, I was saying, and Dick, I want to hear your opinion on this as well. Is when I was saying to Dr. Bradley, because when he brought up an excellent point, he was talking about access, and I said, well, Cruz construction started out small, and I was telling him the analogy of Mario Suzy, and he said he had the one truck, he put the number on there, and now he's grown, and Suzy construction is huge. You don't see a road really being paved in Boston without that. But I was saying now Cruz has grown. Their father had it, now the son John, and it's grown, but they still don't get the opportunities. And they have the infrastructure to take on some of these projects, but they don't. And comparing to, like I was saying, Donald Trump, who doesn't have a good history of it. He's actually filed bankruptcy more times than you can shake a stick at everything he's touched, but yet he continues to get opportunities and availability to cash, right? And we don't. So that's to your point, Jamal, is that we don't get the access to the capital to be able to fix Detroit or fix Atlanta. It's always whenever we're there. And even if we're pressing our nose up against the bakery window, we get to smell what's inside, but we don't get to taste it.
Access.
And sometimes, too, we have the champions that go in that we think, all right, once this person gets in there, once Joe Blow gets in there, he's really for us. Man, things are really going to turn around. It happened with us with Obama, happened here in Massachusetts with Duvall, blah, blah, blah. Now, in Detroit, of course, they had old boy who ended up getting jammed up in his problems, right?
What was it, Kwame Kilpatrick?
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes, too, we get these people who get sucked up into the power and the ego and the money, and they never been in this position before, and they might have an opportunity to do good, but then they end up doing more damage. So it's the frailties of man. So even when we have the opportunity to do good, it may happen still that we end up doing bad because of our own human nature.
Or we shut up in such a way that we're there, and they're throwing so much at you. I'm not saying that people like Kilpatrick didn't make the wrong decision, but once you're once you're in the position and you have shown the willingness to actually support your people, then you are attacked.
Well, and it's always looked at differently when we do it. Dick, you want to respond to any of that?
Well, I like to first say that for many years, we as black people had to stop begging, whether it's the white man, the federal government, whoever, to give us money. We, as a people, and we have proven this many times before throughout our history, can be resourceful in getting what we need to get and create our own jobs, our own businesses, and have a closeness to self-sustainability. I want to make that clear. So we got to stop begging the white man or whoever every single time when something happens that we have to keep getting the resources. We, as a people, have our own resources. We just have to come together to work cooperation and utilize it the way it was meant to be. Also, just because we see a lot of black people doesn't mean that those black people have the same mindset as you and I or anybody else has with good intentions. So let's be clear. Absolute power corrupts absolute people. I don't care what color you are or who you are. It has been proven time and time again. So until we can get our mentality correct and going back to the good old days of trusting one another, then and only then we can propel in the 21st century.
But Dick, to Jamal's point as well as Dr. Bright, but he who controls the purse controls the narrative, right? So he's saying we've had folks, if then the money starts to dry up, we don't get access to the capital. How do we change that narrative? Right, we don't work together. That's a big problem.
But see, I personally think that when we're dealing, let's go back to the idea of the conversation that we had about the South, the area of Boston there, Back Bay area. Not the Back Bay, but the Northern Avenue area of Boston.
Oh, the Big Dig?
No, the area that I said I used to patrol.
Oh, the Seaport.
Seaport, yeah. So let's go back to the Seaport. So when people actually, when they plan that, no city is constructed without planning, okay? So when they plan that city, that section of the city, they laid out the building, they laid out the plots and all that stuff, and then they started actually submitting RFPs, requests for proposals. If your RFP, if you're dealing with public property, why shouldn't the RFP be written in such a way that people of color can get a part of that contract?
Yeah.
Why can't it be written in such a way that if you're going to win, so if you're Suffolk Construction, you're going to win that bid, one of the stipulations in the RFP is that you have X amount of, work geared for
Well,
targeted
let me
for
jump
people
in
of
there
color.
first, Dr. Bradley. A lot of times that's in there. There's no accountability. There's no one held accountable. The city has had that in there, and Jamal, you speak to it, but there's no enforcement.
Yeah, that's where I'm going. And then so now you
a
have
toothless tiger.
you have that, and now you have to have an enforcement arm, just like the law.
Yeah.
We know that the law is nothing but words. All right, but if you don't have people like you and myself who carry badges, the law is just there.
Right.
All right, you got to have an enforcement arm there, which is where I was going to go. So you have to have that arm to say, okay, we will actually enforce this, and if you fail to actually have this, we will actually, you have violated the contract, the contract is no longer valid.
Right.
You got to have, so you can put it in place, but you got to have people who are willing to actually enforce it. I'm sorry, go on.
No, I just want to say this because now I'm skating on thin ice here. So, because of course y'all know that I work for the city now via
So do I.
BPDA. Right. So I can't speak to this particularly without getting our prior authorization. But what I'm going to suggest to y'all for a future show, and I was going to suggest this anyway. One, y'all was talking about Parcel 3, who now the two major developers that are interested in that. One is I believe y'all mentioned before is now his name just jumped out of my mind. Richard Taylor is on one team, and then on the other team is Reverend Jeffrey Brown. So I think it would be very interesting for y'all to get the two of them there.
Okay.
In regard to the BPDA and talking about use of public space, I would love, because I'm the community guy for Roxbury in this case, what we're talking about. But I think that I should get y'all linked up with the appropriate people from the BPDA, and that you guys might have a show with the folks and ask all your planning and development questions.
Yeah.
And the callers
idea.
can chime in.
No, absolutely. Because Jamal, to that point,
BG on this
we
as well.
have been, and now we're at a stall with the city on Mamlio's new headquarters, as well as housing for our seniors there, right? Where they keep making these, and this is where it becomes so frustrating and costly, and that's another stumbling block, and why developers now, if we weren't in a financial situation that we're in as an organization, and just Joe Blow, the average citizen trying to go through a project like this, it would bankrupt you. Just the
that's all-
upfront costs.
That's all on purpose, though.
That's my point. Right. The
So I
changes.
would-
Go ahead.
So I was just saying, so I would love for y'all to have a show, at least one of y'all segments that is dedicated to that, and I would like to plug y'all in with the appropriate people.
Listen,
who
we'd
can-
love to have you partner with show. Matter of fact, I just sent you an email. Then on a small segment of that is that I just want to announce it again. It's a home buyer education class next Saturday, April 2nd at Mamlio from 2 to 5 p.m. Our sponsor, Guaranteed Rate Mortgage, is going to be bringing in some folks to help folks, at least in the home ownership, to try to get them educated on that. So I sent that to you, Jamal, so you could distribute that to anybody you know. But I'm saying that we're trying to do the little steps. I know this isn't going to make anybody a multimillionaire, but we're trying to do a little, and we appreciate and we'd love to if you could help us to structure that with these folks to get them in here. And because
Absolutely, and I hope too that those people are talking too. If they know about it, and if not, I could plug you with a guy that does. For some folks that don't know, they also have a program where you can basically go from Section 8. For those people that may have Section 8, and you can go get a mortgage with that.
yeah, because last week, I don't know if you were listening to the broadcast, we had a phenomenal lineup of guests in here on the mortgage, the renovation, construction, all that. But like I said, folks get scared when you hear about that, talking that kind of language, especially if you've never owned a home. Even if you do, you get nervous when you have to call a plumber, let alone. And I can tell you that what we're going through now at Mamlio, I couldn't imagine just being a regular homeowner trying to navigate through this, or someone trying to develop a parcel in the city of Boston, and every time you turn around, there's a change that they said was okay before. Now we've dealt with a new administration, and now, for instance, they want more bike paths. I'm like, wait a minute. This is Columbia Road. We've already seen the disaster from these designs on Seaver Street and American Legion Highway.
Yeah.
You see more of those run over because people don't know how to navigate it, and you want to cause the same
And
problem.
also too, most of these seniors are not biking, with the exception of these ones.
Hello.
You know what I mean?
Right. Like I see if you wanted more handicap parking in front of the building, but
Right.
Yeah.
And also too, the mother of 4 kids,
right.
she ain't got time to bike.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And two, it's not like, let's say some people who are actually using bikes to go to and from work or school or whatever, but the mother of four can't do that because she got 4 kids.
But brother, listen.
So you know, it's. I think it's some of this stuff is that's being perceived. You know.
But who's it being designed for, Jamal?
Okay, let me. This part I can tell you. We don't do well at showing up. Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of these meetings that happen, there's a couple of tiers, and this is not just from the BPDA, but every aspect of the city, from every meeting, anything, violence, education that I've heard. The community generally says, we never got the memo. We didn't know about this till the last minute or whatever. The city says, well, we put this out last Tuesday. We did a press release. We put it in the newspapers. So the information is really out there, but we still don't get it because that might not be the way that we receive information. Then, even when we do get the information, I can guarantee you that most city meetings are attended by the same group of people. Just like on this radio station, y'all get the same group of callers. Now that doesn't mean that 250 people are not listening right now. It just means that only 3 or 4 are calling in, right? And it's like that with the meetings. So, and not for nothing, people work. They got the kids. So they don't show up for the meetings in droves until it's an emergency. Then everybody comes out. But if we had hundreds of people at every community meeting, then we could get a more variety in the voices that's being heard. Right now, most things that I've seen decided at all city levels are being decided by a small group of people who always show up.
Right, but to that point, Jamal, because I've been to these and I've been very vocal about things I post, but if the fix is already in, a lot of times, depending on who, if it's one of these big name developers or whatever that has something that you and I would normally not get, they wouldn't be having the same problems that we're having at Mamleo, right? If JF White was putting that building up for us, it would be smooth sailing. We wouldn't have these issues.
But it's Cruz Construction,
because that's what we're considering, right? Okay. Exactly.
There you go, right there. That's the reason, you know?
Well, so that's what I mean. So those are questions. I need to plug you up with the people. Those are the questions for the people from, you know, planning. And if the community is perceiving this level of blockade, then that's a blockade that needs to be examined. And even if under my Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, this could be like really like a point of something to study, where people who are trying to do a project and they're still feeling blockades that they don't feel as though apply to other people. I think this is a great basis for a discussion. Just have to get the appropriate people on who can answer these questions.
Right. So again, I want to remind folks that you're invited to a home buyer education class next Saturday, April 2nd, 2022 at 61 Columbia Road, Dorchester, Mass. from 2 to 5 p.m. For more information, you can register at hec.eventbrite.com. That's hec.eventbrite.com. Like I said, that's next Saturday from 2 to 5 p.m. at Mamleo headquarters at 61 Columbia Road. Been nice if we would have had the new building up. Like I said, Jamal, what we've been going through lately, and it's just actually it's appalling, you know. And you know, we're trying to provide housing in our new headquarters, but the vast majority of what we've allocated and dedicated in that building, it's close to 50 units for affordable housing for our seniors, our most vulnerable, right? Affordable, not profit for profit, affordable. The city is saying that this is something that they want, and yet the pushback we're getting every time we think we're taking another step forward, it's like being in the Caribbean Caribbean festival.
2 steps forward,
2 steps backwards.
But listen, the property that you guys are building on is astronomical in value.
Right.
There's a section. You know, and they know who they are in the hall. They're saying we don't want that development there because that development is not consistent with the gentrification that's happening in that neighborhood. That's the real deal. That's real conversation. You know what I mean? You don't have to tell me who they are, but I know they're existing because if they were not there, you would not get the kind of the runaround that you're getting. You know, so you should anticipate it. The thing is how do we prevent that? Because and they're right. The property that you guys are developing there, and kudos to you, but it's needed. the most vulnerable section of our community needs that housing.
Right.
You know, so why are we jumping through the hoops when older people like myself very seldom ride bicycles?
Right.
You know what I mean? I have a stationary bike at home, but I won't put it out. I won't ride a bicycle outside,
Right.
Because I'm afraid of all the things that's coming at me.
But we're
you know,
not only that, because we had a couple. We're providing them with exactly they say they need in the community, right?
exactly,
Affordable housing.
exactly.
Right.
But
Should be a no-brainer.
That housing, they want housing, but not necessarily affordable.
Jamal, last words for
That's
you,
my
sir.
point.
Are you still with us? Jamal, I think we lost Jamal. Ditko, before we go, any closing remarks, sir? You're going to be at the seminar next week, the workshop?
Well, I don't know because you got to. Will you please give me the email again?
Sure.
Supposedly,
Sure. It's an event, HEC.
So it's HEC?
Right, that's home economic. Right, HEC. H is in Henry, E is in Edward, C is in Charlie.
Okay.
.eventbrite.com. So if you go to Eventbrite, you can register, and you can send that out to other folks. Matter of fact, Cora Holbrook is in the studio. You can send that out to friends, anyone who's interested, and we're going to post it on the Memleo website as well. So we can send it to you.
Okay.
All right, y'all. My final words was just, peace, and I just want to make sure to plug y'all up with the right people.
Definitely. That's
Your community
that'd be a great
engagement manager for your area, where Mamleo is at, is Chris Warwell. So if you haven't spoken with him,
No,
so if you haven't spoken with him, I'll plug y'all up.
all right. He's our neighbor right around the corner. Thank you, Jamal. Thank you, Dicker. Dicker, hopefully we'll see you next Saturday as well at the workshop there at the forum. Dr. Bradley, any parting words?
Oh, I think I have said enough. I mean, I'm good. I'm good, man. I don't have anything else other than the fact that I think we need to actually deal with the pig, and not deal with these issues around addressing our people and try to help our people. Yes, we need to do that, but we need to also deal with a system that tend to alienate us.
All right. So, folks, you've been listening to At the Round Table with Mamla. I'm your host, Larry Ellison, my partner, my brother from another, Dr. Bradley. Pastor Hobbs, thank you, sir, for engineering a great show as usual.
And this time went by really fast.
It did. 3 hours, and now you're going to be rewarded.
Oh, she's here?
Quarters. All right. Until next Saturday, we'll see you. Be well.
The ball game, my grandson.
While your dog's in prison, while your baby mom's stripping, while your mom's still living in that same broken home that you used to sell piffin'. You ain't gotta lie to me to sell me a track. You ain't gotta rock fake jewels or walk around strap. I respect artists getting money, but love them for spitting crack. And the fact that one track can move a family out the trap. It's a dream for us lost souls brought up in the mix. I'm motivated by the artists coming out in my midst, and the artists that paved the way when I didn't exist. Music's a skyscraper, I'm just trying to add a couple bricks.
This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer, 'cause I still believe that